Fortnite just confirmed Chapter 4 next season. This is not a leak. This was on their official channels. We're jumping in to Chapter 4 in less than 3 weeks. I'm going to talk about everything we know. We have an end of season event and what is coming in Chapter 4. Also, we just had the craziest tournament, I believe, in Fortnite history. The biggest moment I can ever think of in Fortnite. Second place, dropping on first to win the entire tournament, and it comes down to a single shot. It was ridiculous. I want to recap the entire FNCS Invitational. LAN events are back, and they're back with a bang. Also, we have confirmed when the next FNCS is. I want to talk about everything else we know. It's a crazy video. Let's just jump into it. So what is going on with Chapter 4? So if you guys didn't realize, we had the FNCS Invitational this weekend, $1 million LAN event, the first major epic grind LAN event since World Cup. And we knew there was going to be a big announcement. I was expecting what the next game mode is, maybe a Winter Royale. We got a bigger announcement than I could have ever expected. Next season is Chapter 4. And like I said, this isn't a leak. They announced it officially on the broadcast. I'll show you the moment where we found out that in less than 3 weeks, we're jumping into a new chapter.
Adam, what's this you got?
This is it. The big moment, everybody. Make some noise, please.
Really close.
We're going to have to assume the crowd didn't exactly realize what was happening, so I would have expected a much bigger response to Chapter 4 being announced. But in case you can't figure out what's going on, it's very simple. December 3rd at 4 p.m. ET, we're going to have an end of Chapter 3 finale event called Fracture. I'm going to be making a whole bunch of content on YouTube coming into Chapter 4 with all the leaks and everything that's going on, so make sure you're subscribed if you haven't. And I'm going to be doing a big stream for this new chapter. Chapter 3's launch was so incredibly exciting, and I know Chapter 4 is going to be even bigger because we already have some leaks about exactly what we're getting in Chapter 4. So Chapter 4 is going to bring Unreal Editor. We're going to talk about this in a second. That's Creative 2.0. It is going to have a new cosmetic type codenamed Apparel. We're going to have rideable flying animals, first person mode, and motorcycles. Now, this is all courtesy of Hypex. The one I'm going to have to talk about here, though, is since Hypex made this tweet, we did actually have Tim Sweeney himself come out and confirm that Creative 2.0 is going to be delayed until January, but I think that's a good thing. Myself personally, we are going into a new chapter early December. The hype is going to be at an all-time high. I don't think that is the best time to drop Creative 2.0. I think as the hype is absolutely skyrocketing, jump in, new map, all this crazy stuff like a first-person mode, then, you know, when things start to quiet down a little bit, you kick it back into gear with Creative 2.0. I'm actually happier about this than anything, but rideable flying animals have been talked about for a while. That is just going to be ridiculous. New cosmetic type apparel, that's just going to be item shop stuff. Nothing that excites me too much, but it could be cool. First person mode, and I have to imagine that is only for no builds. That in builds would just be so sickening. I think the motion sickness would feel insane. Maybe you could do it in builds, but I don't think so. For no builds, I am so excited. Every battle royale I play that has a third person or first person mode, if there's not building, I want to play it in first person. And then motorcycles. So those are already things that we have leaked, confirmed for Chapter 4, and it's only 3 weeks away. Less than 3 weeks away. There is going to be more information coming out, I am sure, about this event. The leaks will start kicking off. If it's anything like Chapter 3, we will start ramping up from Fortnite's end with all the news, and I'm going to be bringing it to you. Now, this announcement didn't just happen anywhere. It happened at the FNCS Invitational. I need to recap this. Now, I'm going to be making a proper, fully edited story video like I did for the last Grand Finals in the next few days. Keep an eye out for that. So it's going to be even in more detail, but I did want to just do a quick breakdown of how everyone placed, what happened, why did some, teams that we thought were going to struggle, like Clicks, do really, really well, and why did such big teams we thought were going to pop off, like Booga, Miro, struggle, and what happened in the very last game. If you missed this, you missed one of, if not the biggest, most intense moments in Fortnite history. And I'm not just exaggerating that. We've had shots between Veno and Tayson for solo all-stars come down to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've had Zate winning the reboot round. We've had Booga popping off in World Cup. We've had some crazy moments. We have never had second place landing on first place in game 12 of a LAN. Whoever wins this fight wins the LAN event. This is the moment you guys missed, or if you didn't miss it, let's just relive it. The first international LAN since World Cup. Whoever wins this wins the tournament undoubtedly, hands down. Kami's gonna stall it out. The nerves right now. Veno, he has the prime shotgun. Kami has the right-hand peek. He has the Ranger shotgun. They are both so equal on health right now. Everything's equal. The 90 tag. Veno misses. think have just won the Invitational. Now, that clip doesn't do it justice. That is why I'm going to be doing an entire video breaking down this tournament and just focusing on that exact moment. But in case you're confused, what happened going into last game, game 12, Queasy and Veno are down 12 points on the leaderboard behind Kami and Setty. Kami and Setty have been playing more consistently throughout the whole tournament. To get 12 points on top of them, including however many points they're going to get, is very risky. It could have been done from Queasy and Veno's normal drop spot of North Sleepy. But like I said, there's already been 11 games of the tournament played. Kami and Setty have pulled ahead of Queasy Veno. They've only gone down a couple of times, and Queasy and Veno have started to have more teams go for the high ground, which has been their key to success and why they were in first place coming into day 2. Their second day is starting to dwindle. They're getting way less points. The best option they think of is to drop on Kami and Setty. If they beat them on spawn, they are guaranteed to win the Invitational unless somehow Censored and Cold pull off a 15 or 16 elim win. So I know a lot of people are flaming Queasy and Veno for this because it didn't work. But if, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, coaches, analysts, the people at top level, this was the right play. When it's 35 points for a win, each elim is 2, with how consistent Kami and Setty were playing to try to play out your game normally and just hope they die, it's a risky one. You can do it, and honestly, it would have been the safer option, but Queasy and Veno weren't playing safe. They were playing for the win, and you've got to respect it. Now, you're probably thinking, what was the response to this? Were Kami and Setty pissed at Queasy and Veno? Were they griefing? I mean, there was this image from Kami. Kami was obviously, Setty was obviously feeling himself a little bit. Kami just won the game, but the interview after the game and everything we've heard from Kami and Setty since, they fully agreed with the play. And Queasy and Veno, when they gave their post-game interview, Kami and Setty beat them. They tried. They weren't trying to grief them. They wanted to win the tournament. They got better. They got beaten. The better player won. It was such a wholesome, good response to the situation, and I wanted to put it rest here. Do I think it was a good play? Yes. Did it work? No, but that's not the point. It came down to a single shot. If Veno hit that shot, he wins Invitational. It's that simple. I cannot believe Veno has now had twice in his career where a single shot is the difference between him being first and second in tournaments for millions of dollars. It is just ridiculous, the game we're watching. Let's break down the rest of the tournament. So Kami and Setty won it on 368 points, 12 matches, 4 wins, average elims of 4.3, and an average placement of 11.25. That includes that last game. Because they were dropped on, they went down a little bit later, so that one hurt them a little bit, but they were the best team on the weekend. They played so phenomenally well. And now if you look at their LAN performances, in the last 4 LANs they played, including the DreamHack Solos and the Saudi LANs, they are averaging a 2nd place at LAN. This is the absolute LAN GOAT team and players. They're doing it in solos and duos. Queasy and Veno, unfortunately losing it, but they played so well. They were the most dominant high ground team of the weekend. One of the only high ground teams. Everyone was so scared of them. They got it almost every game for free, and that was their recipe for success. But on day 2, when other teams started to go for it, started to unravel a little bit, we really got to see a head-to-head race come right down to the last game, the last fight between what I think are the 2 best teams in the world. You cannot argue there is any team better than these 2 right now. They are in a league of their own. We had a 40-point jump down the leaderboard to Cold and Censored, who I want no disrespect as far as their performance. Cold and Censored getting a 3rd place from one of the worst drops on the map. All of us had Censored and Cold off our predictions because they were contested. They were contested by Pars and Rays at mid-map. They ended up not fighting them. They were taking like the east part of mid-map, and then Cold was dropping on their house in the middle of the lake with like 2 or 3 chest spawns. Censored said it best in one of the interviews. They were fighting with sticks and stones, but they made it work. They got a 3rd place out of nowhere, just beating out Thomas and Tripern, who after day 1 were in 2nd place. They were performing phenomenally well. Day 2 though, we started to see a lot more south zones rather than north zones we were seeing on day 1, and that seemed to really affect their surge strategy. Unfortunately, that cost them. They dropped down. Still a 4th place, still a phenomenal placement, but I know Thomas and Tripern won't be happy with that 4th place. They wanted nothing but the win, but still kudos to them. Then we had our first small region team, PH, Zin, and Ketos, the Brazilian team, in 5th place. We had a Brazilian team finish top 5. When I run the rest of the leaderboard, you're going to realize why that's such a big deal. Brazil was by far the next best region behind EU and NAEs. They were really the only small region that, did much in the overall leaderboard. After day 1, we had Merim and Zagu from Asia. They were popping off. But on day 2, as far as the small regions go, it was all Brazil. In 6th place, we had a team that, again, I think almost no one predicted, Vortex and Hen. Now, Hen's the GOAT. Hen was the undisputed GOAT coming out of Chapter 2 into Chapter 3. Things went a little bit quiet, still crazy, but paired with Vortex, the main reason no one was picking them is they're two fraggers. They just don't have an IGL. They didn't seem to have a strategy. They got a 7 elim second in their second game on day 1, but then the rest of their games on day 1 were terrible. A 40th place, 0 elim 24th, 0 elim 43rd, 0 elim 37th, 0 elim 41st, just an awful day 1 except for that one game, and a lot of people just wrote it off as a fluke. But day 2, they came back with a vengeance. 10 elim 4th, 9 elim win, 7 elim 9th, 10 elim 4th, and then unfortunately their last 2 games went a little bit funny, but they got so many of their points in day 2. I'm pretty sure in day 2 they managed to pull off 189 of their points in just day 2 alone. So 189 of 239. They were the biggest comeback on day 2 by far. Then we had Bad Sniper and Noah Riley in 7th. Also a team that not a lot of people were predicting since they were fills. Noah Riley and Bad Sniper, neither of them qualified. They kind of got in on the technicality of Mustache picking Bad Sniper to play with before he then could play with Malabuka, which left Bad Sniper as now a captain, and he picked Noah Riley. It was a little bit weird. They're in 7th. Joe and Z Andy, a team that a lot of people predicted to do well because they just always perform on LAN, and honestly they still did. Unfortunately their day 2 dropped them from I think 5th after day 1 down into 8th, but still a very good performance. Then another Brazilian team, we had Zeet, or I believe it's pronounced Cheat, and KBR in 9th. 2 Brazilian teams in the top 10 when there was no other small region, I think even inside top 20. Absolutely ridiculous. Then we had Larson and Smite in 10th from NA East contesting Luda and Muzz. Not a lot of people predicted this. They were actually in top 5 going into day 2. Day 2, Luda and Muzz did far better, but Larson and Smite still pulled off some ridiculous games to clutch up a top 10. Now, I don't want to recap the entire leaderboard, but I do want to call a few teams out. We had Acorn and Edgy, who after they no longer were getting contested at Tilted, kicked off day 1 phenomenally. They went into day 2 in 4th. Unfortunately, day 2, a lot more teams started fighting around Tilted. Things came a little bit unstuck and they dropped down into 13th. We had Clicks and Dukes finishing in 15th. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh, were they beating Pinkin and Nas off spawn? Did Pinkin and Nas leave? No, Clicks and Dukes ended up splitting Jones and Pinkin and Nas, which I never thought was going to happen. Even their coach, Blood X, who is also the coach of Pinkin and Nas, told them to fight on spawn. They decided not to. They decided to split it, and they did phenomenally well. They got a 5 elim first on day 2 and a 2 elim third, jumping them up into 15. If they had one more solid game with how close this leaderboard was, they could have actually been around the top 5 mark. They were very close to a top 5 with one more good game, so very impressive there. Malabuka and Mustache, despite being triple Kondo, which is the same reason why I'm not going to talk too much about Taste or Aqua today, all 3 teams struggled. I mean, a 16th is still good, but it's not Malabuka Mustache good, so I'm sure they're going to be upset about it, but they did come out the best out of the 3 teams. A Kondo, Pinkin and Nas with splitting Jones with Clicks actually got 19th, so Clicks and Dukes did better than Pinkin and Nas with that one. Macwin and Kanata, the Phil team, coming in last minute in 22nd. We then had Yumi and Kuel from NA West, who did really well on day 1, unfortunately came a bit unstuck on day 2. You're probably noticing I'm almost always talking about EU and NA East teams. It's because outside of Brazil, it really was an EU and NA East running of the show. Then we had Savage and iDrop in 31st. They did start getting contested at Logjam all 12 games. Barker and On1 dropped on them. It was super unfortunate. Mr. Savage was unconned the entire season until 2 days out from Invitational. Tayson and Chapix in 32nd. Booga and Miro in 36th. This one was the absolute biggest surprise. Why were they contested? Did something go wrong? They just didn't play well. Like, we didn't watch them too much because they didn't start day 1 good. They were never really that high on the leaderboard to focus on. Their second game being a 2 elim 10th was actually their best game of the weekend, but they didn't do much. I don't really know what went wrong here. Did they miss their surge tags? They don't have a strategy? Were they just having an off day? Not really sure. Miro talked multiple times about quitting during the weekend, and it looks like there might be a good chance Miro is quitting Fortnite. He was talking about the next season of competitive, but said he's still not going to play it. And then it seems like maybe he started to think about it more, started to, interact with more of the pros, and it looks like he's coming back around about competing. So I don't want to say Miro's quit just yet, but I'm not entirely sure. Booga didn't really make any excuses. He just went on Twitter to say he's going to do better. He will be back. We then had Jamper and Peterbot in 37th, who going into day 2 were actually in dead last, which was a big surprise for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say it, my home region, I love you guys, but OCE did really underperform. We had all 3 OCE teams outside of the top 4. 40. It was a rough weekend, but like I said, it wasn't too much better for a lot of the small regions. Brazil really showed up big, and I have to emphasize that Brazil right now, as far as LAN goes, are the small region GOATs. Now, what happened with the big comp announcement at the end of the tournament? What do we know about next season competitively? Now, if you guys didn't know, there was a blog post that specifically said stick around for the end of the show for a big announcement about the future of competitive Fortnite. A lot of people were expecting that to be like a Winter Royale. Some people thought a World Cup, maybe next game mode. Unfortunately, this announcement was a little bit of a letdown. All we got to find out was that it is going to be back to regular FNCS. Thank God, the Elite Cup, it was worth the try, but honestly, I don't think the Elite Cup was a great success. The Divisional Cups are just too confusing. They have some good things about them, but I think the hype in Fortnite right now is enough to show that it probably is mostly bad. But we are going back to FNCS in February, but we don't know the game mode. We don't know the format. We don't know anything other than the fact that FNCS February. That was the announcement. Now, why do I think this was the announcement? I think, unfortunately, whatever happened with the blog post, I don't think they worded it properly. They made it sound like it was going to be a competitive announcement. I think the announcement was Chapter 4, which is by far a massive announcement. That is definitely enough of an announcement that has made me happy, but I think a lot of people were focusing on the fact that it was going to be a competitive announcement, so they're a little bit let down. Myself personally, as a content creator, someone who still does play the game, Chapter 4 has me ridiculously excited. And having an FNCS start in February is the same theme we've seen for the last few seasons. Usually we used to have like a Winter Royale or a Frosty Frenzy to keep us tied over in February, but when seasons end in December, FNCS has never started in January. It always starts in February. So it's kind of fitting that same mold. Hopefully we get some cash cups, maybe some other cool tournaments like late game cups throughout the start of the new chapter to keep us excited until FNCS starts. But when we have a brand new chapter, that's enough to keep me really, really excited. And then when comp rolls around, we figured out the meta, the map's nailed down a little bit more, we jump into an FNCS, and I'm really, really looking forward to this. I can't believe I just made a video on a new chapter. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please chuck a like on it, subscribe for all the crazy content I've got coming out. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.